Welcome to Inside Integration. I'm Chris. And joining me as always is Jason, and
Howdy, buddy.
with us today is Melissa Mitchell from Wipliance.
Hi guys, thanks for having me.
So excited to have you on. We've been talking about putting together podcasts and putting together guests for the show. And when we're like thinking about dealer spotlight, why clients certainly came to the top of the list. And we've got, you guys are kind of an embarrassment of riches. You're sort of industry famous on your own. You create your own media channel. You do all these things. But yeah, I was like, well, we want to have we want to celebrate this. We have our first female guest on Inside
Yes,
Integration. So
yes,
pretty excited
absolutely.
and honored that you are that person. So really excited about that. And yeah, we wanted to talk to you about what you do at Wipliance, what the role that you fill in at the company is. I don't want to do the whole podcast in the first 5 minutes, but just really wanted to talk to Melissa and have her on, get her take on the industry. She's an industry vet, known her for a long time, friend of the show, friend of Oliver Marketing, friend of me personally. So lots of great ways to tie this all together. So again, thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely, I'm so stoked to be here. And gosh, my history with Wipliance is long and storied. And Lee Travis, the owner of Wipliance, usually loves to tell this story, but I get to do it today.
It's
I moved
exciting.
from North Carolina in 2015 and I started out in the admin position. I actually opted to take that, like our front desk admin. And from day one, he pretty much wanted me as a salesperson. But I said, no, I want to get to know the area. I want to get to know this organization. I want to know sort of all the ins and outs of how all the departments touch each other. And that was invaluable experience that led me to eventually step into sales. Marketing is my background. So keeping that near and dear to what I do has been very important. And I've kind of carried that asset as I've moved in different roles in the organization. And, obviously I've grown it quite a bit. When I started at Wipliance, we weren't doing this level of video production and things like that. So it's very exciting to see those efforts nurture and grow. On the sales side, I head up our lighting and shading team. So as we've grown as a company, we've found that the focus started on audio video. Our roots are in home theater, but we touch so many areas of a customer's home, and lighting and shading has become such a critical part of that overall piece that we found we needed to have people within our team that really specialized in that. And so that was where I started on the sales side. I started in shades, natural light control, right? And so having the artificial light control be sort of a natural extension of that. And we are just so well positioned to help electricians and builders really elevate their game when it comes to delivering really high quality lighting for our clients. So that's been really exciting to work on for both my projects and my team's projects.
Yeah, what's the length of the tail on that investment? I mean, there's like you just hose us down with like a lot of like tidbits, but when I think about, I mean, again, full reveal. Like we work with Y Plants, known Y Plants for over a decade at this point. I remember, somewhere roughly in my mind when Melissa joined the team over there in a former life. So again, all of this is kind of coalescing. But when you think about the timeline, like how long would you say that investment has taken from when you guys started to really focus on lighting and focus your efforts there to start to see a return? What would you say that timeline looks like?
It's interesting. White Plants has had a history in lighting because we have a sister company, Obot Electric, that does line voltage installation. So we've been involved with lighting for some capacity, I think, much earlier than most integrators have been. And that gave us a bit of a leg up. So the runway was not as long. I think where we are now working is on all of the details, right? Communicating details to trades for things like linear lighting, in terms of how coves and niches should be built, all of those finer details. That part of it is kind of where we're currently at. And overall, the Wipliance team has been really in the last 2 to 3 years been picking up on asking every single client how they feel about the lighting in their home. And it's just gradually increased to become a part of almost every project that we touch in some capacity.
Wow. So, and that's, you kind of touched on something there that seems to be one of the obstacles to a lot of integrators getting into lighting and shades and natural lighting control and that sort of thing is like, how do you make those connections, right? So you guys obviously do, and you specifically obviously do a lot of outreach to designers and trade partners and electricians. And again, you said it, makes it a little bit easier having a sister company, but obviously not all your leads are coming from your sister company. What have you found that's, that's a great way to kind of connect with those local trades and kind of get you onto their projects and, become part of a, kind of established team, going forward.
Oh, absolutely. So usually in our industry, the homeowner is the one who has the most emotional investment of what's going in terms of the technology and more so about the lighting as well. So it will be a conversation that might start with the homeowner, but then just finding out that 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, if you will. Okay, who's your builder on the project? Who is your electrician? Is there currently someone contracted to do low voltage? Because sometimes there may already be for just like basic networking wire and things like that, but they're calling me about shades or they're calling me about Ketra. So just finding out sort of the lay of the land and what other partners that we can bring education to. Because my next call is going to be to that builder to say, hey, listen, John Smith is calling me about his house. And I'd just love to talk to you about this project and see how we can help your team overall with delivering what this client is asking me for. So that I think has been a big part of it is introducing yourself as a player on the team and not somebody that is going to overrun or completely change the direction of the project. Lighting has been done one way for a really long time, and we're kind of disrupting a lot of things about that. But the key is helping everyone to have that Jerry Maguire moment of like how it's going to bring us all better and really give the client something that they're going to love to live in. That's important.
Sure. That's definitely, obviously that's the most important thing, right? Is that client satisfaction and getting to that point. It sounds like, you guys are very willing to work with the other trades. And I think that's something that a lot of integrators are getting on board with, right? So for the longest time, we were just kind of like, oh, those are the AV guys. They're going to run, they're going to run cable and they're going to, put an access point right where we don't want it and all of those things. And, it sounds like you guys are really making inroads into, being that technology resource where you're kind of the air traffic controller here for a lot of different contributors to the project. And that's great because that solidifies us all as, custom integrators as just completely integral to the project. So kudos to you. That's great.
Absolutely. I mean, even outside of lighting, like the first thing that came to my mind out was like the HVAC guy with your smart thermostat, right? Like there's so many different elements of a project that you do need to function as a team with these other trades to bring together something that is going to really work well for the homeowner. And these smart home systems, they interact with them every day. So they need to work and they need to be simple. One thing I say often is that a smart home is not smart if it's complicated to use. So
Yeah. Oh, I spent all this money on this wonderful technology, or, I mean, I remember hearing it from clients in my integrator days. Yeah, we don't use it. Well, why? Like you spent 6 figures on this stuff. Well, my wife can't figure it out, or my kids are messing around with it, and like that is the immediate like blinking red light. Like, hang on a second, we need to fix this, right?
We've never heard that before. We've
mean,
never heard a client want to throw an entire system into the ocean
oh,
because they don't use it or it's hard.
different
Never.
levels of
Come on.
expectation. I mean, it should have voice control and it should have voice recognition, and I should be able to, use a biometric reader in every door in my house if that's what I want to do. You guys can do that, right? Like,
yeah.
sure,
Well,
if you want to live in a lab or something like that, I guess.
Right.
Cool.
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I'll set up
Well,
for
and then
getting your lighting buttons engraved. Like if we can get your lighting buttons engraved, I'll call that a win, and we'll.
100%. Lighting control is something that I get resistance to occasionally in terms of it being complicated. That is a common thing that I will hear. And I oftentimes will say that your lighting control all Lutron systems, they sell the same parts, but it's like a recipe kit, and who is cooking those ingredients and putting together that meal is ultimately going to be what affects how things turn out. So the programmer becomes incredibly important in terms of listening to the client, knowing how they're going to use their home and making it simple. Like, for example, we do a lot of Lutron homework systems, and we will have the top light be on, and that would change based on different times of day. So again,
Right.
very simple on off control, but not having to know what lighting makes sense just makes it easy.
Well,
And I have a prop that I will often bring out. It's like 6 dimmers and a couple of rotary dials, right? A nice big 8 gang. And I will be like, what is more complicated, a keypad on the wall that says on, or this guy, and
For
it's
sure, a
just
bunch of
it
Decora
drives the point
switches
home.
looks
right.
beautiful. Yeah, we've got a school
Yeah.
bus we're gonna put up here on the wall for you. Don't worry about that. It's gonna fit right into that nice Venetian wax finish on your wall. Not a problem.
And that's, I mean, that's a great point that you make too, where, it's just an on button, right? So it's very simple for the client, but all of the magic happens behind the scenes, right? This is truly what home automation is, where, your home is not automated if you have a 6-button keypad and every one of those buttons is a different bank of lights, right? All you've done is you've repositioned a 6-gang switch location into a vertical, and that's great. That's, 80% of what you need to do.
Yes.
But when you can fully automate it, and a client can walk in and like, just control their huge house with just a touch of a button or just a voice command or just a real quick, gesture or whatever it is. That's the magic, right? Like that's what we do. And yeah, that's great to
Absolutely.
hear.
I love the
Yeah,
hack.
I
I love the hack. Sorry, I just wanted to point that out. Going around with like an 8-gang Decora plate with some volume knobs and some switches in it.
it's
Like
amazing. I'm
Right.
looking at it
if
right
I mean,
now.
again, anybody that was listening to this, like there is a nugget right there. I know the game is to be sold, not told, but that's a fantastic little hint. I like that one. It's a good
You
one.
don't even have to. You don't even
100.
have to point it out. You can just bring it into the meeting and put it on the table and just not even say a word about it, right?
Which one do you want? That one or this?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's actually a Lutron piece, because they've been in the lighting industry for forever. So I can flip it over and show, hey, there's a Lutron sticker here. This is kind of something that's pretty standard in homes and maybe is still even sold today. But is this what you want next to your fancy piece of art in a very precious room in your home? It's amazing what kind of reactions that solicits. I know early on when we were doing lighting control systems, like you're saying, having all of the buttons, like having an individual button for each light, was something that our technicians were trying to figure out how to do for the homeowner. And
Mhm.
yeah, again, it's just like vertical wall clutter. You've moved
Sure.
it from here to here, right? So figuring out where scenes should be located in different rooms of the house, and then more importantly, which scenes are important to trigger from the wall versus from a portable keypad on a
Right.
coffee table versus the mobile app that the homeowner has for his secret party mode, right? Like there's
Oh,
ways to place those different things so that it makes sense for everyday living, and you really don't need that many buttons. It's confusing.
And you're absolutely hitting the nail on the head, because that's what's confusing the clients too, right? So a client thinks, oh, it's this lighting system. Oh yeah, oh, and I realize that I need a lighting system because I have 258 different circuits in this house, and I don't want all this wall clutter or whatever. And that key last step is something that a lot of people overlook, and it's the same thing for Lutron as it is for Savant, as it is for Crestron, as it is for everybody else, right? Like how many jobs have you gone into or taken over where, yeah, this thing never works right. I hate it. I never want to see another Crestron system again as long as I live. And it's like, well, okay, so maybe we could have spent another few hours at the end of the project, tailoring the system to exactly what you want it to be. And that's part of the reason why we get a bad rap sometimes, is that it's needlessly complicated. It is left unfinished so many times, and you guys seem to be putting in the effort to really tailor it to a homeowner, and that seems to have paid dividends, right? Like you get your referrals, I'm sure, and you want your client to
yeah.
be in love with the technology in your home. You want it to enhance their lives, and all of these steps are super important to that. It's that attention to detail that you guys seem to bring that's you know sets you apart.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really important.
What so you guys, if and again this is to people that maybe don't know who Wipliance is. I'm not sure who they are, but we'll just throw it out there. You guys have expanded, right? You've started in Bellevue, Washington in the Seattle market roughly, and you've moved out to the Spokane market and out to Arizona. How do you find that that multiple city, multiple state scenario working out for your team? Are you trying to grow a new Melissa in Arizona and a new one in Spokane? Are you trying to spread yourself around? Like what's that like? I mean, it's interesting, just from a profile perspective to hear about a company your size, like what you're doing to grow, what you're doing to adapt and overcome some of those challenges.
I would say I'm doing both, right? So, from a shading and lighting control side, I am coaching other people because I do want to help others build up and essentially clone myself. I want to have shading specialists in each market. I've actually already hired another one here in Bellevue because we have so much that I can't work with every client these
It's a
days, which
great
is
problem to
fantastic.
have.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
fantastic.
And from a marketing perspective, that I think is my unifier between the three offices. It allows me to go to those other offices a couple of times throughout the year. And we have a leadership team, a core group of people within our organization. Most of them are based in Bellevue, but a couple of them are in other offices that we do travel between the offices just to create that symbiosis.
Sure.
We really do want to have everybody rowing in the same direction. And then what's really convenient about having offices that are essentially in opposite markets, our peak seasons are opposing each other. So we have that ability to add to our bench depth as we need to. If we have a bigger job in Scottsdale over the winter months where it's their peak, we can fly guys down from Bellevue. They don't mind a little sunshine. And vice
Yeah.
versa. We save our Scottsdale teams from those 100+ degree temperatures in the summer when we're busier up here on both sides of the mountains. So
Yeah,
our
there you go.
technicians they've flown to various projects throughout the country, really, because we've even had clients fly us to states that we don't officially operate in, such as Alaska and Hawaii. um, because we're relationship builders, we work with our clients over years, and so when it comes time to build that next house, they don't really want to reinvent the wheel if they've got someone who knows what they want
And you can
already there.
support them. Yeah, you got to get Javi out of the desert in the summertime, right? You got to go. It's a little hot out there. I love those guys. So sorry, little inside
Oh,
baseball with
absolutely.
the team
Yes.
there on the call. One other thing I wanted to touch on. I mean, just lists of topics. And if you're not looking at the video portion of this, Melissa is uh, positioned with a wonderful kind of like rainbow lighting scheme behind her on the wall. How do you find the investment in a showroom that details the lighting and stuff like that works as a tool to close deals? I know how I feel about it personally, but I wanted to hear from somebody who's made that investment and has that tool in their belt. Like, is it as awesome as it looks? Honestly, because I think it would be really hard for a lot of integrators out there that don't have a way to demonstrate it to close these concepts and to make those deals happen.
It can be challenging just because, like, we also have a little road kit where we can throw up a little bit of linear or throw up a single lamp. It's not as immersive as just being in a space where I can completely control the light, block out all of the natural light. Some of those fun parlor tricks really make for an experience when people are coming. And it kind of opens their eyes. They see the light, if you will, even
Oh,
if
good
I'm
one.
showing them. Yes, even if I'm showing them a product that maybe is too much for a certain space, it gets them thinking about what their lighting is doing overall, and they should be thinking about it more. So it is an incredibly powerful piece, and I guess you could say that our investment in a showroom is pretty easily seen based on just how we keep upping the ante with every single one that we build. Bellevue here, we have a catcher certified showroom and several different vignettes. Down in Scottsdale, we have not only an office, but then we have a show home up in North Scottsdale that's available by appointment. And that is incredibly immersive for people to not only see lighting, but pretty much everything that we do. And then in Spokane, we are in the process of building out now what I am coining our design center. It is
Oh,
so big that I don't think I can call it a showroom. We're going
uh,
to have an outdoor living area. We're going to have several different listening type areas, a hi-fi listening room, as well as a full-fledged home theater, and then like a kitchen living room vignette. And we're big believers in light can help you. Shout out to David
sure.
Warfel and Mark Langston. But we have gone over to the LTC in the Dallas Market Center, and that was where the light bulb moment really was for me, in terms of seeing that you need to illustrate bad lighting as well as good lighting. I think one thing that integrators are probably commonly thinking is that they just want to put the best of the best in and maybe only show that. You need to put a surface mount fixture that is just an absolute glare bomb to really illustrate why what you're talking about is better. They feel it and then they make the decision on their own. You don't even really have to sell them on it anymore.
Some
Sure.
6-inch cans in the ceiling, like, okay, let's turn those on to 100%. Make, I don't know, like this one, like 6,500 Kelvin, like really just totally ruin your day. And then,
Absolutely.
then we'll throw on the color tuned linear lighting and diffused sconces. And you tell me which room would you like to be in more often, right? I
It's
love that.
it's a great demo because we saw something very similar to that down at Sonance, and you'll see it when you get down there as well. But it changes your mood. It absolutely changes your mood, right? Like you start with this room that's maybe conventional lighting, and you're kind of thinking like, okay, this is fine. Maybe this is what I have in my own house, and then they switch it over, and then they switch it back, and you just feel uncomfortable. Like it absolutely makes such a difference in your life, and that's one of the things that Light Can Help You is really good at is they're very good at illustrating that, and they're very good at kind of evangelizing for that sort of thing, and how we sort of take it for granted, but when you show somebody a comparison, I mean it will blow them out of the water. And Design Center sounds very exciting.
It is. It's a very cool space to show off different layers of light as well. That's something that when you start pulling those layers away, and for example, they have linear on a stone backsplash. When you turn that off, that stone looks like it could be a sticker. It has no dimension or depth to it. So being able to highlight all these things that are really important when people are building their homes, they obsess over what color the flooring is going to be in the stone and all of these different fixtures. But then they're not necessarily thinking about what color all of these things are going to be based on the light that's shining on them. So that is, again, another light bulb moment that I usually have with clients when they're telling me about all these Italian marbles and things that they clearly have a lot of care and planning in the selection of. So we're encouraging that on the lighting side as well.
Wow,
Yep.
getting your eyeballs and your wallet aligned, right? You're like, let this is what you're focused on. Like, how can I attach things to that and make that profitable? And obviously, lighting gives you that tool. You mentioned it
Yeah.
a little bit earlier about how the business started out, right? Like, and I think like most integrators, we started out in the audio video business. I know in the dark days of the 90s when I started, it was the quote unquote home theater business. And people were like, what do you do for a living? And I couldn't really sum it up in any other words other than, yeah, I install home theaters. And people would go, oh, I have some perception that I understand what that is, but really had no idea. But at least they could go, oh, you put movie theaters in people's houses. Great. But I mean, that was in terms of a percentage, that's mostly what we did. How much of that would you think at this point has shifted to things like outdoor audio or to lighting in terms of like the makeup of your day to day? And I'm not asking for the cheat codes at Wipliance, but when you think about where the most of your effort is spent and rewarded, how much of that would you say is lighting versus audio versus good old TVs and home theaters and stuff like that?
That's a good question, honestly, because we have so many clients that I would classify as multi-system, or we're doing multiple things for
Sure.
them. The clients that call for just audio video, I would say is probably less than 20% of our business overall, right? That is definitely something that they call about, but there is also a lot of competition in that space, and prices are constantly changing and things like
Sure.
that. So we find that AV becomes a component of the larger relationship and the larger home, and that's how we're most successful with it. Another thing that we tend to prioritize is design focused, right? So
Mhm.
clients are not calling us because they just want us to slap a TV on the wall on a mount. We're talking about TV treatments. We're talking about acoustical panels. We're talking about invisible speakers, things that are going to add to and elevate the design and not compete with it from a technology standpoint. That becomes
Right.
incredibly important from an AV standpoint.
Yeah, it's just again, I think that is just another trend line, and not surprising that Wipliance is an outlier, and sort of on an early trajectory compared to where some other guys are. Again, we've already talked about the investment and some of the other stuff that you guys have got going on, and the forethought. You Lee Travis walks in and sees you as the admin and goes, you know what? I bet you'd be really good at sales. Come with me. I'm going to drag you out into the
Sounds
world and make sure that you learn all the things. But I wanted to circle back because you and I had talked briefly before we had this episode. But you know what I know. What is it that got you into the industry? We hear stories about, oh, I was a 12-volt installer, or, oh, I used to, dig ditches, and this guy was like, hey, you look like you're great at laying wire. Why don't you come up here and lay some wire for me? What's the Melissa Mitchell origin story? I'd love to hear how you got, how you got on the highway of custom install.
That is a fun one. So I mentioned I moved out to Seattle from North Carolina, and I was just kind of looking to get into a completely different industry. Prior to working at Wipliance, I had worked at a corporate barter trade exchange, which is something that very few people know about. But if you do, shout out. It's a really good thing to know about. But my dad actually, back in North Carolina, is in the commercial side of integration. So
oh, interesting.
he was installing alarm systems and sound systems in all kinds of restaurants and offices. And, back where I'm from, NCAA, ACC, we have big football centers.
Sure.
So he's doing big planar screens and that kind of stuff nowadays. And it's cool, some of the father daughter bonding that we do
Oh,
in
shout
terms of
out to
just talking
dad.
about
Nice job,
Yeah.
Dad.
in terms of
Great
just
job,
like
buddy.
talking about manufacturers. But it's so weird because he's on essentially the other side of it. I am primarily residential and he's primarily commercial. So where I talk about Crestron and Control 4, he's talking about Extron and Planar. So it's interesting to get that insight.
Oh, that's really cool. So yeah, see, I've got to model myself after your dad as the father of two teenage daughters. I've got to try to inspire them, and I wanted to just throw this out here as a personal thank you. I know that you had offered to maybe help mentor or inspire my girls for what's possible as a career. So, in along
Yeah.
that line, what else are you seeing out there to help drive new people into the industry? What else are you seeing out there to get young people's attention and maybe start thinking about a career in this industry, if anything? If you've got great ideas, we'd love to hear those too.
Absolutely. That's something I'm super passionate about. I actually have a goal this year of wanting to go and speak at more community colleges and trade schools. I know there's a lot of published paths to getting into both electrical and low voltage, but I don't know that it's really widely talked about. When you talk about getting into low voltage, just how cool it is in terms
Right.
of some of the kinds of projects that you do and the clients that you meet and the things that you touch. Like going to CEDIA every year is one of the funnest weeks ever, and every time I go, it's like continuing to make all the connections and things like that. And, especially being a woman in this industry, it's been really cool to be sort of a trendsetter, in terms
Agreed.
of
Certainly.
bringing on,
We need more good
yeah,
people in the industry in general. If they're female, that's even better. Like I
absolutely.
think it makes for a friendlier space, and there's it's going to be a better vibe. But just my personal opinion on that. But I think
Absolutely.
I think there's a lot of opportunity for people in this industry. But certainly when you talk about the convergence of design and the aesthetic and those interactions with homeowners on a level where you're connecting with somebody like on a natural level, not just like, hey, look at all these trinkets I've got. It's like, hey, like let's vibe out a little bit. Let's have a
Yeah,
conversation. Let's
what's
see what it's
important
all
to
about.
you? When you
Yeah,
can find out what's important to them and really get on that level, it's just it makes the project so much better. Truly, you know.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Whenever I start talking about lighting, I describe that it kind of bubbles over the edge, right? Like you can tell my passion is translating to what I'm talking about. And I think that there's a lot of areas in this industry for people to have that similar feeling about. And your customer will pick up on that passion and they will want to work with you because they know that you care about what you're doing as opposed to just selling something.
oh,
Yeah.
it's great. Chris, you have any more questions?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wanted to, you know, as the de facto marketing person here at Oliver Marketing, I kind of wanted to get into that a little bit. I mean, we've
You should,
seen
because she's a G. She knows. Yeah,
I,
see your eyebrows going. She knows
it's
what she's
I'm
doing.
I'm very intimidated. Let me just tell you that right now, especially after we spent like 20 minutes trying to get my microphone to work before the show. But you know, some of the things that we've seen from you guys from Wipliance is beautiful. You know, the videos that you shoot in your clients' homes and how you know, you kind of package it and you really, you know, you really get across. And I guess this is the point of marketing in any way, right? Is how you get that feeling across of what you guys can provide to a client is very impressive. You know, to me, especially now that, you know, I'm in here and I'm digging this hole for myself. You know, what what made you guys decide to invest? Obviously, you know, doing a fully produced video and getting that time and stuff, it's a big lift and it's a big investment. What you know, what drove you guys to do that? Like what convinced you guys that this was a worthy spend? So that I can take that information and get it back to my boss to
Yeah. Well, so I mean, when you think of a smart home, right, it's really hard to encapsulate everything that I do in a single image. When I'm putting together ads for magazines and things like that, I can touch on luxury, I can touch on maybe one or two elements of what we do, but it's really hard to say everything in a single image. And a lot of times there's a unique take. Like, for example, we were talking about hiding things in your technology, right? Small aperture, hidden, invisible.
sure.
That's a theme that we translated to a video. So I would say where our journey is at now is about having sort of those unique angles to communicate the story. But sometimes it's just about going to visit a really cool project. And HTTV, if you're listening, I mean, I feel like this is a whole. I feel like this is a whole in greater broadcast because it is
Yeah.
fascinating to see kind of what goes on behind the scenes. And it's really fun when we get to do like a before and after, when we come into the space before it's done. And then after the fact, we did a theater video where it was kind of an awkward room. It was a very long and low ceiling room. So talking about some of those challenges and just kind of how we turned it around and made it into something amazing is super special. It started with a video that we paired with a builder, and her name was Alexa. And so we took this fun little Alexa play on words,
Nice.
and created this like almost 1950s kitschy fun video. That's when we met a couple of people that have become really critical to our video production team now. And you know, you don't reinvent the wheel. Once you find somebody that gets the flow, you continue with that flow, and a lot of
Sure.
times you get faster and more efficient, but then you just continue to up the ante. Like a few years ago we decided we had to start filming in 4K, right? That was critical. And so, you know, making those changes to be able to support that. And then eventually it was like, okay, we want to have two people interviewed at the same time, right? So having all of these different things that push us to make us better has gotten us to where we are now. It was definitely some figuring it out along the way, but a lot of the times that's how you do it, right? You just dive in and figure out what works and what doesn't, and
Yeah.
then you continue to get better at it, right? So it's really exciting. That's probably my favorite part of what we do. It's a crazy chaotic week, but it is the culmination of all of our team's hard work, seeing that finished product and seeing how our clients feel about it. And it's extra fun when I get to have them talking on camera about that. So, you know, it's a really great week at work.
I mean, it sounds like it, and that's I feel you. Like that is my favorite part of it as well. All the other stuff is just kind of it's not as great as that week and putting the pieces together and building it out. And it's I'm sure it's great for your team, right? Like I'm sure that your team loves to see the project that they bled and sweat into for this amount of time, and it comes out and it's perfectly finished, and they can tell their loved ones or whatever, hey, this is what I worked on, and here's something that I'm very proud of, and I think it's wonderful, and I think it's great what you guys do. It's really just super impressive to me.
If you haven't seen what we're talking about, just do work the Googs or work the YouTubes,
Yeah, we'll throw
and
some links.
just
We'll
search for Wipliance. And you'll get to see some videos. I mean, you might even see yours truly about 20 pounds lighter, and definitely a few less gray hairs in some of those videos.
I remember that. I remember we did like an on the fly CDO one where I was just filming with my cell phone.
Yeah, we've done some fun ones over the years. So yeah, it's fun to look back at that. We were just at Lightapalooza, and we got to visit the Wipliance show home. And outside of the amazing charcuterie board, some of us did. Not you, Chris, but we, Melissa and I.
Sure. Next time. Sure.
We got to see some of that stuff, and there were the videos were playing in the background. I'm like, holy cow, there's a lot of video. You guys have put together a ton of content over the years. I mean, John Howie's steak to the latest one, or the most recent one that I've seen was with the shipbuilder in Spokane. Like the evolution of your content, even again, is a great benchmark for people that are out there trying to be inspired about what to do with their integration business. Like, how can I get outreach? What can I create? There's a fantastic example to follow that, maybe you're not doing it exactly at the Wipliance level yet, but it's a fantastic, target to shoot for.
Well, and it's a great cross-pollination opportunity. If you have a builder that you work with regularly or a designer that you work with regularly, potentially you can even go in on the costs of the video production and, get multiple things accomplished and really share that project to an even broader audience than just your own. So there's so much opportunity for video. The one I think magic element here is Lee, him being on camera and delivering his interviews and things like that. That's harder than it looks. So to give him props there, it's something that as we've gone through the years, he just gets continually more and more amazing at that. So that's hard to replicate for sure.
It's nice to have ownership.
I've been on camera. I was in one video when we went down to the Catcher headquarters in Austin, Texas. Of course I did. I had to be in that one. So, and it was intense. Normally I'm the one directing, saying smile more and do more of this. And...
Right. Yeah. Not, you got to direct yourself, right? Good luck with that.
I hear my voice in my head.
So
I know how that is.
Yeah.
That's not fun.
I'm right there with you. So totally weird softball question, but it's a fun one. What's the latest Lego kit you're working on? If you don't know, Lego is a major component in Melissa's social media feed. So I get to see all of the latest and greatest ones popping up. So what's the coolest Lego thing you're working on these days, if you don't mind sharing?
Oh, absolutely. So we just finished the typewriter, which is an amazing feat of engineering. Having all those keys actually work, incredible.
It works? Are you serious?
Then, you can type the keys. This
thing, as the father of an 8-year-old, I am familiar with the typewriter kit, and it is spectacular. Okay. It is so cool.
It's amazing. And then light kits in Lego, not to continue to talk about lighting, but
that's what this episode's about.
There's a company that sells kits that you can add to your builds after they're already done. It is the cutest teeny tiny little circuit boards and teeny tiny little wires and like a single LED diode, but you can feed them inside of bricks and make it look really integrated. I have a flicker effect board on one where the fireplace is flickering. So
cool.
That combined my nerd work brain and my regular nerd brain and did wonderful things. So and then we're going we're going to Bill in Denmark this summer to the Lego house.
Wow.
So
A
I'm
plus.
super excited.
That's awesome.
Bit of a pilgrimage.
Whoa. So I mean, yeah, was that like fly through Iceland? Like I'm just imagining like where in the world is Carmen San Diego with like Melissa Mitchell like as a Lego character going, flying around the world to go see the latest and greatest. Okay, so
You know,
now I know how I'm going to spend my next paycheck or two because I've got some Lego
There's
kids
some
here at my
such
house.
this is
absolutely.
so
There's some
when we had our kid, that was absolutely the justification in large part to me having a child was to be able to play with Legos again. And we are absolutely, my kid went through all the Minecraft sets and he's into the Speed Champion things now. And now he's, yes, got to pull that big tote of Legos from like 1985 out of my basement. And yes, it is fantastic. And for what it's worth, when you're out here at Sonance, Carlsbad, there's a Legoland, and it's like, I don't know, a solid 25 minutes from Sonance. So if you could work that in, it's worth going.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love Lego. It is, as a person who has to a lot of times come up with the rules for what I'm doing for the day, to sit down with an instruction manual and essentially turn my brain off in a different way, but then still come up with something really beautiful on the other side. And then also to be able to build our own stuff. My partner David is just as into it as I am. We have the nuts and bolts drawers that are sorted
Awesome.
by color, brick, and type. So being able to just get in there and like put your ideas to physical form is a really cool thing.
So there's the profile of a successful lighting and shade designer. She's got her hands in Legos. She's making video production. So for the business owners out there that are listening to this podcast going, I need to find a person for my team that's good
That's what you're
at
looking
stuff.
for.
This is the profile that you're looking for. And it's rarefied air. So, I mean, Melissa's already spoken for, but there's got to be somebody else out there with similar similar credits on their resume that you can build into the next marketing and sales champion on your team. It's fantastic. I love it. Okay, well, we've been chopping it up here for roughly 45-ish minutes. Before we give a parting shot here, before we head off into the sunset, if you could use this platform as a megaphone to deliver a message out there to your dealers, to your builders, to your customers, to our audience, again, not to put you on a spot, but it is a friendly spot. What would you
Sure.
use this megaphone to say? What would you use this platform to talk about?
I would say it's never too early to get engaged on a project. Even if you're still in early permitting phases, your options are way more open and you can have much more of a conversation and have that opportunity to get fully educated in what you're looking to do. As opposed to, I think one thing that is typically done with a lot of integrators is we're brought in last. We're the last on the construction schedule before drywall. We're sort of the last in mind in terms of certain things. So
Budget.
being able to, well, and even just like timeline, right? Like they're not thinking about their speakers until it comes closer to moving in and things like that. But
Sure.
sort of reframing how you think of an integrator as the construction process goes. And then also that we are here to be a resource to those other trades like electricians, builders. We're here to make everybody better. So I love what I do. It's really fun.
That's again sage advice. Work with the trades and the team, build that relationship, build the bridge. You guys have been great at that. I mean, again, working with your vendor partners over the years. I know many vendors around the country, many folks that work for different companies, and there's very few that haven't heard of Wipliance, even if they don't work with you guys. So, I think that speaks to how successful you've been penetrating the CI space, as well as obviously the builder markets and the other territories that you're in. So again, if you haven't heard of Wipliance before, go check out their YouTube channel. Go check out Wipliance.com as as a reference. Maybe measure yourself against that bar and say, yeah, these are some things that maybe we can incorporate to make our, to bring our game up a little bit. Or conversely, just stand back in awe and go, wow, these guys are crushing it, and they've got good people on their team like Melissa. So maybe you're a builder out there or something like that, and you stumbled across this podcast here in the Pacific Northwest. Definitely a fantastic team to reach out to and to work with. And whatever we can do to support those efforts and support you guys at Wipliance, the folks here at Oliver Marketing obviously are there to make that happen as much as we can.
Absolutely. We appreciate you guys.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off for me, and then I'm going to hand it over to Chris. So thank you guys for joining us on this episode. Thank you to Melissa for taking an hour out of her day to share with us all the wonderful things that Wipliance does, and to talk about her closet Lego habit, which seems to be far more out in the open now, which I'm excited about. And I'm looking forward to some upcoming future videos about Sonance and some of the projects that you guys have got going. And this, I mean, we talked about it a little bit. I didn't get to gush yet, but I can't wait to go to Spokane here in a week or so and see your new space out there in the valley. That's pretty exciting. So thank you guys for joining us.
We've got some really exciting video coming up, so I'm excited to share it.
So awesome. So I'm going to hand it over to Chris to sign off.
Yeah. So again, Melissa, thank you again so much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on, and we can't wait to see what you do next. So please, at some point, come back with us, and thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, guys.